Hey everybody, this is Drew and JC here with the debut of the first episode of season 2 of Zombie Apodcalypse. You heard that correctly. Zombie Apodcalypse is back, everyone. So sit tight. We have a cool guest who's going to talk about his books of the zombie genre, and we'll get into some other stuff too. But first, as always, we have an intro.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse. Well, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will part the earth. Zombie apocalypse.
Sick.
All right. Yeah,
I like it.
Thank you. That's brand new. I made it today, and that's the first time I've done an intro that I haven't been completely torn apart by my co-host. And
I have nothing to rip it apart for other than maybe it could like fade out at the end, but that's okay.
we'll work on that a little bit.
Or
But-
the clawing hands just rip the screen.
Oh, that'd be
because-
cool if it like
Oh.
ripped it away. Oh,
where were
no.
you this morning, Sean?
Yeah,
I'm
mowing the
gonna have-
lawn.
I'm gonna have to make a couple.
That is
of
such
edits.
a good idea. That is a really good idea.
All right. Yeah. Well, damn. Okay. I thought.
All
I
right,
had
we're done.
perfection,
We're
but
done.
it took
Season
10
2's on
seconds.
hold.
Yep. We're gonna have to cancel everything. So
New
outside
open
of
coming soon.
yeah, outside of having fantastic ideas for our intro, this is Shawn McLain. That's Shawn, not John McLain, not to be confused.
Yippee-ki-yay, and I won't finish the rest of it.
We'll go ahead and we're going to pass it over to him, let him introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Oh, fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Again, Shawn McLain. I'm an author. I wrote a couple zombie novels. One's called Respect the Dead, and the other is Nothing is Certain and the Dead Walk. The original title was Nothing is Certain, but I had a publisher that wasn't like into that. They didn't understand it. It was based on the joke, nothing is certain except for death and taxes. So if the dead are walking and the government's gone, I guess there's no death or taxes. Of course, yes.
We did it, guys. We won.
Of course, they don't mention the other two, which is laundry and dishes. Those are definites.
Those are the two things that I need to disappear the most. So if a zombie apocalypse is what we need to get there, I'm all for it. Let's get it done.
Well, my first zombie novel was Respect the Dead, and it was a lot of fun to write, but I wrote it out of what I felt was necessity for me. I know I'm going to catch grief for this. I know I'm going to get a lot of people mad, and hopefully they don't show up at your place with pitchforks and torches. But I wrote it
every
because
Saturday.
I wrote it because I got so fed up with The Walking Dead. And the
Awesome.
show
I'm
was
glad you brought that up. We'll get into that for sure.
fantastic because I just was like, enough. So I had to write my own story and explain. I wanted to explain what happened. So I started at the very beginning, first person getting sick, dying off, to the horde growing, showed you how it happened across the country and why they couldn't stop it. You know,
That's a good
why-
concept. I like it.
yeah, I took some liberties with some ideas that Max Brooks had done,
Okay.
and because it made perfect sense. You know, the army is trained to shoot center mass, and you're trying to hit something moving that's the size of a small watermelon at 1,000 paces. They're not trained for that. So
Right.
I can understand why they were having some trouble.
So is he an inspiration for you? Did you read his zombie novels? I want to say it's back in the day at this point. I remember reading those in high school.
Um,
Oof,
oh,
20 years ago.
Yeah, at least.
yeah, lucky. I'm on the other side of that. Yeah, I read them and I thought this is good. This is such good stuff. Um, it was far and away different than anything else I'd been reading, and I love the way he put everything together and showed you, you know, how things were happening and how the survivors made it through. And usually, which is kind of my other complaint with a lot of zombie novels, is yeah, they're survivors, but you, you think the characters don't want to survive. They're always broken and nobody's like not broken, but these people are like the most horrible, self-loathing creatures on the planet, and they're the ones that survive. Yeah, I think they'd be
Every
the
time.
ones that are going, yeah, just eat me. I'm done.
I think that's more even like that's a more modern invention when it comes to like zombie TV shows and movies, right? Because you watch the old movies and there was always that like element of evil like going on
Right.
in the background, but like you had like smart people, scientists, people that just like community and stuff, and then there was always that weirdo that would like mess the whole thing up for everybody, right? Like, oops, I left the weirdo.
Right.
I think a lot of that will come back, like everything should. It'll go back to Romero, right? So, like he left us with hope a lot in the beginning, but by Day of the Dead, we kind of see what you were talking about, where Day of the Dead, you are just hit over the head with despair constantly,
Yeah.
and every character is super unlikable, and they've just been beaten down by this thing, and they've become that really terrible version of humanity.
They've become the
And
zombie, right? Like that's
and
the
Right.
yeah, and overall, like his theme didn't change with Land of the Dead, and so I think a lot of that modern media will just play off of what's going on at the moment, and then of course we see the remake of Dawn of the Dead came out around that same time, and that's like for JC and I, our generation, we got to see this boom of the zombie resurgence around, I don't know, 2004 or something, when Zack Snyder's Dawn
Yeah.
came out. And I mean, I will not be ashamed to admit that that was really my introduction. I had, of course, seen a couple of other zombie films as I grew up, but it was really middle school and high school where the genre really just took me. And it had a lot to do with Dawn being remade, Land of the Dead. That I saw that movie in theaters. It's a like proud moment of my life that it's the only
Yeah.
Romero film I got to see in theaters. And just at that point, I was old enough to start doing research. And then, of course, the Zombie Survival Guide came out, and it was just like
Yeah.
this
That one
awesome
was fun.
boom. Yeah.
yeah,
That so many of us walked through my high school with that thing like it was the Bible.
right. Funny enough, Dead Alive / Brain Dead was the first zombie movie I remember ever watching. I just stumbled across it like accidentally one night, when I had my own bedroom and TV, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'd go through the channels on like Dish Network, and IFC was playing Dead Alive, and so that was my first introduction. I was like, oh, this is real cool. Then I got into like the Italian zombie films, and started going backwards.
Yeah.
From there.
Well, my first zombie experience, I don't know if I'm going to share this or not, actually. I remember it was about 1978, so I was a kid. I was a little kid at this point. I'm at my grandmother's house, and you only got like 3 channels at that point, and the TV ad for Dawn of the Dead came on, and I'm watching it, but I'm not watching it. I'm like out in the hallway from the TV room, and I'm playing with the sculpted carpet, but I'm so intrigued by all the zombies, terrified of the spot itself, but I'm like, I want to see that so bad. And I had to wait a few years before I could, but that was my first memory of the zombies. And I'm like, I really love these things. These are so cool.
That trailer was really cool for the Dawn of the Dead, right? Like that was
Oh yeah.
a very unique trailer.
and they're coming down the escalator at the mall, and I just remember that very clearly.
Drew and I grew up right there in around Monroeville, right around where Night of the Living Dead was filmed. So like we were inundated.
Yeah, it
with
was
like
in our
that.
blood, and that's actually we had communicated first through the Living Dead Weekend Facebook page, I think.
Right.
Do you ever make your way to those events?
Yeah, I've been to the Evans City event twice, not since they redid it, before that, and I've been at Monroeville 3 times. This will be 4 coming up in 2 weeks.
Nice.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to be back there with my books and my little gremlin.
I might make it out that way. I don't live there anymore. I'm a bit farther on the other side of Pennsylvania now, but I have been meaning to make it back for one of these. It's just easy to pass up when there's 2. They do 2 a year, so it's like I'm always like, I'll catch the next one. I'll catch the next one, and so I'm hoping that this one will be the one that I actually catch. But now I just
do you know the date of that, Sean?
June 7th, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I might be back in PA for that, actually.
If you are, let's do it.
Okay.
But yeah, dude, growing up in that area, that was another thing. Once that zombie craze hit, and I was really able to like absorb myself in it. At the time we had the Living Dead Museum, which is the one that like they're the guys who put this Living Dead weekend together. But at one point, they had a storefront in the Monroeville Mall, and they had all of the museum stuff was there. And during comic book conventions, they used to have like free hot dogs and stuff to draw people in. So people would go in and they would see like all of these life-size zombie.
I think they still have that. Last time I was there, they had it. They had a storefront.
Fantastic.
It's still there.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'll give you a little another treat from my memories here. All right, Dawn of the Dead. Love the movie. Always have. Now, as I got older, I went to work in broadcasting. And I know that Romero and his wife also worked in television for a while. So at the beginning of Dawn, they're at the TV station, right? And they're in the control room and all hell's breaking loose. I have never in my life seen any other representation of a newsroom that was more spot on than that. It was every single thing that I'd been through as a TV director myself. So I got to see, the scripts flying, the Chiron's not working, the news director going, "Why aren't we updating this?" And I'm just laughing myself sick, going, "This is perfect." And now I live out in central PA. So, they get the helicopter and they're flying over. And I'd seen the movie so many times, but this never registered until I moved here to Pennsylvania. When they get over and they wake up Flyboy. And where are we? Harrisburg. We passed about an hour ago. Oh, these rednecks are probably loving it. Well,
yeah,
living now in central, living in central PA and married to Johnstonian. Yeah, I'm still laughing at that.
That's where I live now. Not Johnstown, but not far from it. I'm like 40 minutes from Johnstown. I'm a stone's throw from Johnstown and Altoona in either direction. Yeah, and you're right though. That part always tickles me when I rewatch it, because even today in 2024, that's a super accurate depiction of the lifestyle that we have out here.
Well, I hope the viewers and listeners know about Johnstown, because it really helps set the stage for my book, because I based it in Johnstown.
Oh, awesome.
The city is based on it, because it's so difficult to get in and out of there. There's like one way to get to the highway, but then you're coming over the river and through the woods and over the mountains to get there. And it's just such a pain. I'm thinking, if something happened here, apocalypse happened here, you couldn't get out of here, because the roads would be completely jammed up. So that's why I kind of put it there. It's in this basin, mountains on either side.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic setting. I've been considering writing something similar myself over the last couple of years since I moved out here. And Johnstown, for people who don't know, there was this huge flood. It wiped out a lot of people. Very similar to Katrina, with a levee being kind of broken from a dam, and
much earlier though.
Yeah, it
Right.
like wiped the whole place out, and the infrastructure didn't get better afterwards. Like they didn't learn their lesson. So
They were just like, there's like, nah, we're good.
The setting for that town, like he said, is incredibly annoying to drive through, or one way or the other.
Really no easy way in and out. Yeah, and oddly enough, with Johnstown, after what they had like 5 different catastrophic floods. It was about the sometime late 70s, after I don't remember which hurricane it was. They put all these like different levees type things in, and the government was like, "Hey, this is great. This is what everybody should do," and it flooded again.
Yeah. Do you have any of the floods in the town setting?
No. We start in what I said is modern day. So I didn't have any floods available at that point, because my main character, she falls into one of the many creeks and rivers around there at one point, which really sucks for her, 'cause it's early spring in Johnstown, so it's not very comfortable. Probably has just snowed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, something that you had pointed out was kind of being tired of the modern zombie tropes of everybody kind of as a person sucking.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the characters in this novel, and the different personalities and ways that they don't suck, and somebody might relate to them.
Well, what I wanted to do was, again, since I started at the very beginning, you get introduced to basically a family. It's a brother and a sister. It's Steve and Beth, and Beth's got this best friend who's kind of a dork, but or a geek, or whatever you want to call it. But these are regular people, right? So when this stuff starts happening, first there's disbelief. How are we going to deal with this? This cannot be happening. But the people know about zombies. They know about Romero. They know what they're supposed to do. They can't understand how it's actually come to pass, but they can't shoot. They're not snipers. They can't hit something from a mile away. They don't have access to weapons right away, even though, Johnstown and America, but none of them have a katana that they can swing and take somebody's head off. So it's just random people that finally get together and form groups to survive. And the brother and the sister are trapped on either side of the city. They can't get to each other, and they kind of just keep passing each other. Okay, where would she go since she's not at home like I thought she would be? Where would he go since he's not at work? Would he go back home? Well, she would go over here and he would go over here. And they do get more people involved with each side, but one might be a cop, one was an army, in the army, one was a socialite, one was a city planner, and sure, we had a few skills, but again, nothing that was like you can pop off a zombie at any point. So it's more of, how do we evade? What happens when my cell phone dies? They finally clear the air and I can get a signal, but no way to charge this thing because I'm sitting here on top of a roof,
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that I'm like, how would this all work out? And also not be the most, I didn't want them to go, okay, let's meet some people. Yay, they've got shelter. They're welcoming us, which means in 10 minutes they're going to turn on us and we're going to have to fight our way out. And
Walking Dead.
Let's go down the road, meet some people. They were great. They gave us shelter. Guess what? They're going to try to kill us. I mean, it was rinse and
Turns
repeat.
out they're cannibals.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. Like, wait a minute. there's canned food forever because most people are dead. There's animals in the forest, and you immediately go to cannibalism.
It did
Come
not take
on.
long for them to go to cannibalism at all. They
It was,
they wanted
they
to.
literally
They
they
wanted
ran
to.
out they ran out of great value green beans and it's like, all right, we're eating each other.
What do you want for dinner, Tim?
Hey Tim, come here. Tim, come here.
Just a bite, it's good.
Just a little tasty
yeah.
taste.
That's actually something that we're gonna do on this version of Zombie Apocalypse. Is we're gonna do
Cannibalism.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that too. We're gonna do like Walking Dead retrospectives. I started watching it last week again. I had given up on season 7, so I haven't even seen the conclusion of the show. And I just
Yeah.
picked up a bunch of the comics so I could refresh my memory. And so,
Oh, never the two should meet. Actually, the comics in the show are like so different.
For better or worse, we're gonna go through The Walking Dead, and because it blew my mind that show started 14 years ago. That's one of those passages of time that like really hit
huge.
me.
It was huge for a while, and it kind of trailered off a little bit.
You had to avoid social media on Sunday if you didn't catch the episode. It would be ruined for you.
Or you get it ruined at school the next day.
Yeah.
Even like in college, like everybody was talking about it,
And now we're only months removed from Andrew Lincoln returning for that miniseries with Michonne, and I haven't heard a single thing about it. So like the dichotomy of the fan base has changed a lot too.
It is unusual that as I'm talking to people at shows, I just got back from a show, and I'm saying, here's my book. I wrote it because The Walking Dead was annoying me. And they're like, oh my God, you have no idea. It's like, so how did it make it so long if everybody was like, I gave up after season 5, gave up after
I think
7.
I call it the Office syndrome, where after Michael Scott's gone, people just keep watching, hoping that like they can still feel, oh, it's the Office. It's going to be funny again. No, it never happened.
Yeah. And then from what I gathered from different things, and then you've got the one woman who was dating or married to the guy who gets his head beat in by Negan, and now
I didn't even make it that far.
Yeah, her and Negan are now in New York City. I'm like trying to just mentally get to these places, and I can't.
I made it up to the point where Rick walks out of the place that he's locked in, and then I quit. So, like episode 2.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm kidding. I made it further than that.
He made it. I'm gonna guess. He hasn't told me this. I'm gonna guess you made it to the garbage people with the goofy haircut, and called it quits at that.
I think I made it to like right when they first get there.
Yeah,
I think
it's about
when the young kid gets trapped in the door and eaten, but Glenn makes it out from under the dumpster is when I gave up. Which I couldn't even tell you what season that was.
Yeah, and then Daryl wakes up and he's just in France with no memory of how he got there. Like, how do you go from Atlanta to France without a memory of it? That's not something that a short-term memory loss is gonna deplete.
Now, all I can figure is they traveled by map, like the Indiana Jones map, and he just showed up and he was there.
They walk across the water.
Right.
I wanted to touch on something. Sorry, Drew, but before I forget, and this might even be a trope too, because everybody says this, that we're so reliant on technology now, this and that, and your book is based on modern day. So somebody picks this book up, now somebody younger, and they start reading through it, and they're going to be like, I'm screwed. If I lose my phone, if I lose GPS, if I lose those connections, the messaging, instant messaging, text, done, dead.
Yeah. They lose their phones, probably, if I remember my research correctly, I mean, nuclear power is gonna probably be the second to last after hydro to go out, but all the coal-based stuff, you got a couple days and the automation's done. And then you're worrying about the towers being powered, and they're not. Then your phones, you don't have a grid to plug in, so maybe you got a car charger if the cars are still running, and that's another. I'm going to slam
EVP?
on Walking Dead again. After a few years, and this is a problem I have with a lot of zombie, as the years progress, it's been 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and they get into a car and they start it up. I'm calling bullshit. Battery's dead. The gas is turned to varnish, and the
Ooh.
tires are flat. It's not happening.
No, the tires are gonna be rotted. I would imagine the engine would probably be seized because the oil would all settle and start to harden, right?
Most
Yeah.
likely, but there they are. They just fire this pet boy up, and I can go on for days, but I'm not going to. I don't want to overrun your show with my complaints. But zombies will never pop out of the ground. Okay.
Oh, hold on.
They will never, ever, ever pop out of the ground.
Let's talk about that, because
No.
most people just kind of accept that they will crawl out of their grave. So go ahead and jump into that.
All right. Modern embalming is basically plasticizing the entire body. So they take out all the fluids and they run something else in it, the formaldehyde or whatever the new concoction is, and that makes the body basically plastic for the preservation. So you've got this plastic body it's very rigid, and you take that and you put it into a steel or copper or bronze box, and you close and lock the box. Then you take the box and you put it into a cement vault, and you put another top on that. Then you put 6 feet of dirt on top of it. Maybe the zombie came back to life, but he's not making it, or she's not making it through the steel, the concrete, and on up. It's just not going to happen.
Modern. Now we could go, let's say 1950s back to where maybe the modern form of embalming wasn't as widespread, and we might have Amish zombies, right?
Amish zombies, that's possible. I'll give you that
There
one.
it is. Dude, there's a movie idea, Drew.
There it is. And I'm surrounded by Amish people that we could easily make that happen.
I've been kicking around the Amish werewolf love story, but that's just mixing too many genres.
Well, also, I've been wondering about
it's Twilight, but for the Amish.
Because apparently Amish romance is very popular to a certain segment of the population. So
can you tell us who they are so I can stay away from them?
So I haven't actually met them. So yeah, I'm doing a good job of staying away myself.
Oh man, that's funny. But that's a really interesting thing that I had legitimately never even considered, that all of those steps that you take when you're putting a body into the earth, you just kind of accept, oh, they're dead. And sometimes I will say most of the time you don't see them coming out of the ground too much anymore. That was more of like a 70s, 80s Italian thing.
Yeah.
But
there was the one scene in the first Resident Evil. I'm buying it, and then they start coming out of their graves. I'm like, it was Resident Evil 2. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
they even had the bodies leaving the morgue in Resident Evil 2. Are we talking about the movie or the video games?
The movie.
Okay. In the video games, they had the bodies leaving the morgues in 2 and 3. Like, as you go to like the police station, then they had like the morgue down the street, and they're like all coming from the morgue.
Sweet. I mean, that would be horrifying.
It would be horrifying, but also like their brains and stuff are pulled out, so that's not possible.
Right. And as much as I love Return of the Living Dead, again, I'm gonna smash it because the body parts keep coming after you even when the brain's gone. No.
Yeah.
And they're not going to eat brains. I'm just going to stop.
But that wasn't like a really serious movie. That was more of a tongue-in-cheek.
What's really interesting about that is it debuted against Day of the Dead, and it beat Day of the Dead in the box office.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
But I love both those movies.
Yeah, I do. I love them both too. And I'm hoping to get John Russo onto this podcast. It's been a long time since I talked to him,
and Vince Russo.
Yeah, him too. There was a time when John Russo had my phone number, and like I was moving a couch one day at my aunt's house, helping them move. And my cell phone rings, and this is like, before smartphones and everything, and it's like one of the slide razor phones, and I like open it and answer it, and it's like, hey, this is John, John Russo giving you a call. Like I had originally I was going to go to his film school, and he it just blew my mind that this guy's, I've been watching this dude's movies for all these years and idolizing, and everybody rightfully so gives George Romero a lot of credit, but John Russo did a lot for the zombie genre himself. And here this dude is calling me while I'm moving a couch. And it's a story that I just always like to share. So I hope when I see him again, I can talk to him and maybe get him on this show. That's a goal, and we can talk about the brains situation.
Here's the good zombie trope we can talk about. Zombies always congregating where they used to go to the most when they were living. The shopping malls, the gas stations, the grocery stores. That's always where you see them. They're not just like wandering around in the woods for the most part. Some are portrayed that way, but they're usually at places.
When Romero did it, it was an allegory about humanity and what we had become with our lifestyles. Right. I can't say.
Well, it was either going to be the shopping mall or the castle. Like, what, John Romero? What do you want me to do? What do you want, brother? Pick one. It's good. I'll be sitting on my couch with a MacBook in front of me when I'm a zombie. That'll be me.
Yeah, there you go. I think most of us will. And you talk about the reliance on technology now. I think that if we found ourselves in a situation like this, people would start offing themselves over it. They wouldn't even like the apocalypse situation wouldn't even affect them as much as being cut off from their devices. And I think like a large portion would.
People killed themselves during COVID, like when it was just starting. Yeah.
There's a anime series and manga series I was reading. They kind of touched. No, Zom 100. So this guy is like he's just working himself to death like he's a zombie. The zombie outbreak happens, and he's like, "I'm free. Everything's great. The zombies are attacking. I don't have to go to work anymore."
Yeah, that's on Netflix, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I've been thinking about giving that a watch, but I actually have such little time for jumping into new shows and stuff.
Don't expect a whole lot from it, but it's entertaining and kind of funny.
Yeah, well, I mean,
don't expect it to push the zombie limits, though.
Zom 100.
Very few people do. One zombie film that I covered when I originally did this show a couple of years ago was, I think it was Maggie. It was called Maggie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And everyone else who watched it for the panel hated it. And I thought it was cinematically one of the better zombie films of the modern era, because it did kind of take some liberties with telling that story, and it was a really interesting look at a father-daughter situation during not just her being a zombie, but a lot of the plot occurs in the time that they're waiting for her to turn into a zombie.
It's too real. Is why people don't like it, because it's not like over the top zombie ridiculousness. You know what I mean? Because like that was probably look at Zombieland and stuff like that was coming out that was super popular, like that over the top. We got to mow down 9 million zombies. This was too intimate for people, I think, and they didn't like it.
Intimate's a good word that perfectly describes it. But she gets infected by being a zombie at a party, and it looks at the zombie virus like it is a real epidemic, that it's slowly happening and people are aware of it, and they're like keeping people in quarantine and isolation, but still living their life and like kind of going about their daily business. And it was his daughter's at a party, she becomes infected, and then all of the things that ensue after that while they're keeping her quarantined in the house, and him waiting for that inevitable moment where she was going to turn. And some of them actually keep their, kind of like the governor did in The Walking Dead, keeping their children locked up in a way while they're still like rotting flesh corpses. Yeah, I highly recommend that movie if you've not seen it. I think it's on Tubi.
I'll have to check that out. Now, I want to mention that my book, it is kind of like, oh my God, what did we just go through?
COVID,
which was a pandemic. Oh,
Yeah.
pandemic. Yeah.
yes, wordsmith here. Great. So my book starts with a pandemic starting. I wrote it before COVID, so that's my disclaimer I always throw in there. Was okay, this was before COVID, so that's people getting sick and dying off. And that's how there's so many. But you brought up Zombieland, and that reminded me of the question that I always ask, which is something I try to answer in my book. Is in Zombieland, in Day of the Dead, and I know there's others. Why is there always a zombie clown?
Yeah, because people are afraid of clowns.
So, but again, a lot with Night of the Living or the Dead movies, this was happening over a period of time. If you look at Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. So who the hell was having this party though?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. If it's Day of the Dead where that clown shows up, you are a solid 10 years into this by that point.
You know, the dead have risen. Grandma is eating, cousin Charlie, but Timmy's gonna have his clown at his birthday. Damn it!
Hell yeah!
It's his 5th birthday, and he will have that clown.
I have theories on clowns, but we don't need to get into that.
But yeah, no, that's another thing that most people just kind of overlook because it's a cool thing that's happening in the moment. But logistically, when you break it down, it makes absolutely no sense. I don't recall there being something like that in Night of the Living Dead.
There was no. Yeah, there's no clown in Night of the Living Dead.
Which is like the freshest take.
Now the remake, there's like some real big, super fat dude with the boomer zombie. If we're going back to Left 4 Dead series, but there was no clowns. They were just like normal people wandering around out in the yard with like a flashlight being shined on them.
Right. So that basically goes back to your other question though about why they gathered in places. What brought them to the farmhouse? Why were they there?
If I'm remembering the plot of the movie correctly, it was the lights, wasn't it? Because they had the electricity turned on or something. They said something about, because remember they're like, oh, we got to go down the basement and shut the lights off.
Well, that was also the kooky people that were.
Well, that's true too. There were the people that were already. There was the old couple that was in there. It's like, oh, it's the lights, the electricity, the technology, the radios are bringing them in. That's true. That's true.
It's kind of left open to interpretation.
That's a good question. I don't know what really brought them there in that original movie.
So yeah, we've got the memory in Dawn. Obviously the activity of the helicopter and everything else brings them in a day. And Land of the Dead, obviously there's the lights and everything that's bringing them in. And then we don't talk about Survival of the Dead.
Survival and what was the other one? Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead, yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say they get a lot of flack that's unjustified. At that point, he got experimental and it kind of is what it is. But I do kind of generally end that with Land of the Dead, which a lot of people hate. And to me is one of the better films.
I love Land of the Dead.
The director's cut in particular of Land of the Dead, I think, is one of his better films. I would put it top 3 at the least and maybe higher up.
The Xbox game that they released for Land of the Dead, that's a first-person shooter. It's excellent. It is so hard to find. It's worth so much money. So if you have a copy, hold on to it because it's on eBay. It's over $100 for a copy of this game.
I don't think I have a copy anymore, but I used to play it.
I am so lucky that I got a copy of that when I was young.
Yeah, but like Leguizamo's character, I thought was really enchanting. Charlie in that movie, I thought was super relatable, and you kind of have that hope that doesn't really exist in that genre too much. And what is it? Argento's daughter was in it too. So Asia Argento, and
The whole
there's
atmosphere of that movie was like welcoming in a way, like in a dark way, right?
Right.
Like you're invited in at the beginning and it kind of pulls you in. It's almost like a roller coaster ride.
and it does, I think, really do a good job of demonstrating why people at that moment thought they were safe when they were surrounded by river everywhere. Like
Right.
Pittsburgh, like the idea of Pittsburgh, and I guess there are some places in Ohio that are very similar to the way Pittsburgh is built. If you're able to clear that city, you would have that false sense of security. And then here they are, here's the zombies, and they're just walking across the floor of the water, making their way to you. It's just like this brutal awakening that, yeah,
And then everything you thought was keeping you safe is keeping you trapped.
Yeah, now you're trapped there. Like the movie was incredible, and we got Dennis Hopper, I think, was, as far as corporate style villains go, one of the better interpretations.
That movie, Green.
Yeah, the movie gets so much flack, but it's one of my favorites. I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah, I love Land of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good to hear, because the last time we talked about it on a podcast, everybody was yelling at me like I was stupid.
Nah, I thought that one was great as well. It's after that it's kind of like certain Star Wars movies. I pretend they don't exist.
Right.
All of them,
or at least parts of them.
Hot take, all of them.
And I'm out.
Yep. I'm gonna fight with you now. Yeah, we can't get sidetracked on Star Wars. That'll completely destroy the conversation. So what about your second book? Because you had said that you had written the second novel. So is that a follow-up directly, or is
it is not?
No.
It was just a one-off idea that I had that turned into a little bit more than I originally anticipated. Basically, you do have some glimpses of the apocalypse as it's happening, as it's starting, and then it kind of calms to, all right, we're alive, and now what? But there's like a couple groups that are trying to find this doomsday prepper's bunker, because that's where they want to be. It's going to be safe. It's going to be underground. He's going to have food, water, whatever they need. And they just have to get there. So I follow a family who is related to the prepper, and they're at one of his safe houses trying to get to him. And I have another person that worked on the bunker, remembers it, and he's trying to get back to it to be safe. So it's just a couple of ideas that I had that I worked into that story.
And then it just kind of blossomed into a larger novel.
Right.
Thanks.
And then I had a ghost series that I wrote while working on the follow-up to Respect the Dead, which I'm still working on.
Oh, well, we could talk ghosts too. So we started as a paranormal podcast last year, and we were known as Sasquatchers Paranormal Podcast, and that's where we kind of built our following that way. And now here we are about a year later, and I've decided that, we're popular enough that I think we can talk about other stuff and people will follow us along. So I came up with the idea, well, with Sasquatchers, we're now the Watchers Podcast Network. We'll keep the paranormal stuff, but we're adding this, and this, and this. And so our following absolutely love ghosts and paranormal stuff too. So if we could talk about that.
Well, I will shamelessly plug my own books.
Yeah,
you give me a moment to do that, I'm gonna take advantage of it. It's
that's the whole point of the podcast. It's all one giant grift.
It's called the Grey Girls series. I got the Haunting of Sturban House, followed by the Van Tassel Murders, and then the St. Mary's Horror. And it follows a young woman who gets herself killed in the 1930s. And she realizes she's dead. She's trapped in this house. As the years go by, she realizes she's not the only thing in the house. Then people buy it. They start doing a renovation. Next thing you know, you got a portal to hell that's open. Deals with an evil witch. You've got demons in the walls, multiple murders spanning decades, and you actually kind of hit different time periods all through the book. And book 2 and 3, I can't tell you much because you have to read book 1 to figure out who these people are that show up in 2 and 3. But
All right.
it's been pretty good to me. And then my last novel, I like to, when I'm out at shows, I like to say that I've got The Dead, which is my ghost series, The Undead, which is the zombies, and Elves. So I have a fantasy novel out called Thorn.
Okay. Yeah, all right. We're
I
fantasy
did see that
nerds
on.
too.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. Yeah.
Yeah, Thorn does have vampires, hags, witches, well, sorceresses, elves, humans, and mages, which are their own creature. And Thorn and her best friend, who happens to be an elf, are friends with this human. They realize that a secret has been kept from them. Once they discover the secret, the next thing you know, one of their parents gets abducted by another parent who actually turns out to be an evil sorceress. So a lot of fun there.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely into sword and sorcery type stuff. We're the show we're doing tonight. We're gonna do a live with the guest in a little bit. It's based off of, well, not based off of. We're doing a retrospective of the Death Stalker series from Roger Corman. Um,
Okay.
so we're gonna go live in about an hour and talk about that. So yeah, I mean, I'm all in on everything that you've told us about your books. I'm gonna, this was really kind of like a fast booking. We talked about it, and then here we are. Typically, we like to read our guest stuff before they come on, so that we can have a better understanding. But I will certainly be looking for these
Do you have
books.
picture books?
No, sorry, I don't.
That throws me out here. Then
That's why.
have you, Sean? Have you ever been to the Monroeville Gaming Expo?
No, I have not. I would like to.
I believe I can't remember when it is because it's been a couple years, so I didn't. It's not. I think it's in October. It's a 2-day thing at the Monroeville Complex Center, the thing over by the hotel. But
Right.
they've recently, when I was there, they had a couple of authors that were fantasy authors that were just like, they weren't there before, like the year before, and they had just been there. And I think that'd be a good place to consider going.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I appreciate that.
Because then you get all the gaming nerds and all the fantasy nerds like us, and like we have like some gaming expos out here in Cleveland and that, like retro gaming stuff, but we didn't have authors, so it was different for us to go and see authors there and talk to them about why they wrote the books, what got them interested in a lot of Dungeon and Dragon stuff like that, so
I blame my wife for the fantasy stuff.
Yeah,
I have no affiliation with that organization, but with that event either. So
fantastic.
But hey, on that note, same question to you. Like, what made you want to be an author? How did you get the ball rolling on that?
Well, initially I just wrote stories. I did some creative writing in high school, and then I just kind of kept at it. I would write stories just for myself, just kind of like, an idea would hit me, and I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. That's a good idea. The original Gray Girl came out from a dream I had about a ghost who was missing a necklace, and then that became a book. Like I said, I got tired of the way the Walking Dead was going, so I wanted to know what would happen if. So I wrote that book. It was always something kind of going on in my brain. I used to write these stories that scare my friends, of, hey, by the way, read this, and they're reading it. It's about them walking home being attacked by like a werewolf or a vampire, or I had a friend who was terrified of clowns, so I wrote her a story about the clown coming out of the woods and just stalking her. And that was a lot of fun. So I thought, okay, if everybody kept saying, you're really good at this, you're really good at this, you should write a book. And I'm like, no. And then I finally sat down and wrote one, and it was okay. So I did another one. And I'm not to sound arrogant, but at the last convention I did, this woman bought the first of the Gray Girls. She left, came back up to me, and she says, "I started reading this." And I'm like, "Oh crap!" She wants her money back, which is what every author would be thinking at that point. She goes, "It's really good. Thank you so much." I'm like, "Well,
Oh,
that's
great.
cool."
Yeah.
So I
Don't have
think
to
I'm doing
slam her.
something right.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
No refunds, no returns.
Yeah.
So while we're on the topic, Sean, I see all the books on
Yeah.
your website, which is ShawnMcLainAuthors.com, which is here listed on the video too. Do you have digital versions available of these?
Yes. Everything's available through Amazon or Barnes and Noble. Well, they don't exist anymore.
Barnes and Noble
Barnes and
still
Noble
exists. Yeah,
does
they're still good.
exist.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
And Books a Million, you can get everything. You have to order it, but yeah, everything's digital. I do not have Audible yet.
Where do
But
you
can get them
prefer
as
that people
ebooks.
buy them from?
Prefer they get them through, say, Amazon. If you want Thorn, through Sunbury Press is a great way to do it, or come see me at a show where I
That's
can
the best
sign
way,
them
of
for you.
course. Sure.
Or if you've already bought one and bring it to a show, I'll sign them for you.
Will you sign my Kindle?
Yes.
Right on the screen.
Right on the screen, permanent, one of those paint markers from back in the day that used to sniff or something. But yeah, I will be at Living Dead Weekend. Again, shameless plug for myself.
Do you have any other
coming up on the
events that you're
7th.
going to attend?
I've got several. I'm going to be at the Carlisle Comic Con. I'm going to be at Books in, I think that's in Hershey this year. No, it's in Lidditz. Chocolate Town, that's in Hershey. Go figure on that one, right? And I want to say I've got another event, but I cannot remember what it is at this moment.
Well, hey, JC recommended one. I'll go ahead and throw one out for you to check out in the future. I think you would do well at Sci-Fi ValleyCon in Altoona.
Yeah, I wanted to check that one out too.
I think they're actually gonna coincide with Living Dead Weekend this year. I don't know if that happens all the time, but they have a very similar fan base that go to those shows that I think you could definitely sell some merch to.
Fantastic. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we're at almost an hour, and we generally cut it off there. People get tired of hearing our voices any time later than that.
True.
So I want to go ahead and thank you for your time. This was a fantastic conversation. I'm really happy with it.
I just bought Respect the Dead, so everybody go out and buy these books. Barnes and Noble has them, like Amazon has them too, but the Barnes and Noble ones came up like instantly for me. I had to like scroll down on Amazon for some reason.
Not sure, but if you enjoy them, please leave me a review.
We'll have to have you back on to talk about them. Well, after we read them, we'll have to have you back on to talk about them.
I'd be thrilled. I'd love to do it. I really
more in depth, obviously, than we did tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
And I might actually be in a place with more light so you can see me.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. You should see some of the guests that we've had on. Sometimes it's cell phone and they're like in their car.
We had a guest that was in a
cab of a truck, like a semi truck.
And like literally like on a flip phone kind of quality. Like it was the worst. It was a good interview, but it was like the worst.
Just brainy
speaking.
Yeah. So you're doing great as far as presentation goes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad we could help you plug. And for sure, this was fun. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the future.
Maybe if I get out there in June, maybe we can connect.
That would be great.
Yes, I will also be purchasing these books. I am going to try to buy them from you in person at Living Dead Weekend. And if not, I will check out ShawnMcLainAuthors.com and pick them up like all of our listeners should do now. And If there's nothing else, we could go ahead and hit the outro and let you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Well, I appreciate the time you've spent, and I enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to talking to you guys again. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sean. It's
awesome.
been
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you. And everybody else, we will see you soon. We have a live show coming up, and I've been putting out lots of new content on the YouTube channel since the summer break started. So check us out. We have a lot of stuff. We have the Shark Tank audition tape is live now. For anyone who wants to go check that out. We were through the process of Shark Tank, and they passed on us. So now we're showing the video to everybody that wants to check that out on the Watchers Podcast Network YouTube channel. And all the plugs are done. We're gonna go ahead, hit the outro, and Sean, enjoy your night.
Good night.
The preceding program has been brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to help grow our network. Check us out on all social media platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for your support.